Hello there and welcome to The Standpoint. Yes, today we do have an exciting program, very educative, quite touchy, but it needs to be talked about. Today we are talking about child abuse. Yes, child abuse, and this time the focus is on the girl child, the child or the boy child who is defiled, who's been raped, who's been abused. What kind of trauma does he or she go through? How does it affect her fertility, reproductive health? What about STIs? The psychological, the stigma. It's going to be very educative, and I have the right people here. I have a clinical psychologist and the main person at the Kolebu Child Protection Department, the principal health nurse in charge of it. And we are in for a scare, but a good scare for us to sit up as parents, as teachers, as pastors, as lawyers, as people who should care to do something about this. Welcome to The Standpoint. Let me say thank you to GTP. Yes, this one too is Adepa. So grateful to GTP for it. My dress is by Brie Redua. Thank you so much. Makeup by @the_global. We take a break. When we come back, we'll meet our guest, and it's going to be very revealing. We'll be back. Welcome back to The Standpoint. Yes, today we are touching on a very touchy subject that needs to be talked about. We have to stop being hypocrites because we are losing our young ones, all because we don't want to talk about it. We want to be good, citizens and human beings, but we are not. We are looking at child abuse, the effect on the victim, the trauma, the stigma, the health implications, the psychological and emotional damage that is associated or accompanied by abuse. And I have the right people with me on the panel. But let me say thank you to GTP. GTP is on Oga campaign. Oga, that's original, genuine, and authentic. Make sure that you buy from only GTP accredited dealers across the country, or any wooden shop, or go to www.buygtp.com. And also, we are grateful to Esteron Balloons and Accessories. They have branches all over at Cowlane, adjacent to the Rollins Park, or you can get them at Spinkters Road near Palace Mall, Wager, Achimota, and East Legon. But the telephone numbers are on there. Everything balloons and accessories, they will sort you out. Back to my set, I have the right people. Privileged to have Mrs. Harriet Clufio. Yes. Good, I got it. Clufio, who's a child protection specialist at Kolebu. The right person to be here. Everywhere I pass, everybody says, get her, because she knows her stuff. Good to have you on The Standpoint, and I love your hair. Next to Mrs. Clufio, we have Dr. Joanna Larry-Futu, who is a clinical psychologist. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
The last time we didn't have a garden.
Yes, we have a very beautiful setting here.
We thank you. Mrs. Clufio.
Yes.
Auntie Ness. Should we be really scared, not worried, scared about how rampant child abuse is being meted out to our young ones in this country?
Yes, we have to, because it's both a psychological and public health problem. So once a problem or a disease is it has a psychological effect, it means we must be worried about it. Yes.
But is it on the increase?
Yes, it is. Especially with child sexual abuse. Yes. With physical abuse, it's not reported because we deem it as punishment to the children that they deserve,
Right. I'm told that most of the cases are referred to your unit.
I won't say most. like any other form of crime, people try to shelve it.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I'm talking about the medical, when they go to the hospital, when they finally
Yes,
go to the hospital,
yes,
report at the
yes,
hospital,
yes, yes.
and it's, sexual abuse, and they end up sometimes referring them to your unit because you are
Yes.
the child protection
The
department.
specialist, yes. Is when the person is below 18 years.
Okay.
And even with my department, because of National Health Scheme, it doesn't cover children above 12. But we forced to see up to 16, you know. So with those children, they pay out of pockets. If the child is above 16, because sometimes they need to be hospitalized and our beds are not conducive for
Sometimes they need to be
Oh, yes.
hospitalized.
Oh, yes. There are grave injuries that the child will go through more than 2 surgeries. Just last month, yes, we had a 2-year-old girl who was sexually abused and she was torn from the vagina to the rectum. Oh, yes. So with that, there's no way the child can go home. The surgeons come in and they repair. So after some time, if the child is okay, then that's it. But sometimes the child will have to go through the surgery repeatedly because when it happens and the
Sometimes
rectum,
repeated
yes, when the
surgeries.
rectum fuses with the vagina and then the urethra, that's where you urinate from. It means you'll be leaking urine through the rectum and you leak feces also. So the repair has to be very comprehensive. Yes, that's what happens. And
Wow.
even that, the child will still have to be given an artificial stomach, you know, to collect the rectum, to collect the feces before the surgery can be complete, maybe in 6 months or in a year. So that child will go home with what we call colostomy to collect feces because the child will not be able to use the rectum immediately. It's a major surgery.
Do you sometimes get traumatized?
Oh, yes, I do. I still do. It's heartbreaking.
After all these years, you still...
Yes, I do. I do.
And
It's heartbreaking because these are innocent children who cannot give consent to what they are being forced to go through. You know, it's a violation on their human rights and privacy. You know, so it's
and most of the time, who are the perpetrators? Is it strangers?
No. No. Perpetrators are always familiar people. Of course, you can't just call a child and lure the child into your room. The child will run away or blow an alarm. But it's when they woo them into it, you know, and it's usually done by people in authority. For instance, if it's an uncle or a teacher or somebody that the person has confidence in. Oh, don't say it. I'll give you a gift. Sometimes they will tell you, I won't buy you this. I won't play with you again. You'll be my friend again. Then they succumb. You know, that's what happens.
Doc, 2-year-old, defiled, and sometimes, I guess it's sometimes even 6 months, 3 months.
Yes. For some time now, we don't usually see below 1 year. But from 2 years, you see...
Doc, you said that even you are shocked at some of the things.
Yes.
What's, as a clinical psychologist, what are some of the challenges that these children go through? Do they even understand what has happened to them?
Okay. Thank you very much, Gifty. But to add to what she said before I come to my substantive question, I realized that during the COVID period, where parents had to leave children with caregivers, like she's saying, there was an increase, especially in sexual abuses. So that was my observation, and the comparing note with some of my colleagues, we realized that there was an increase in those cases during the lockdown period. So, like she said, these are usually done by people they think love them and care about them. And so if I know that you are someone who cares about me, someone who loves me, you do this to me, in the first place, my understanding about what love is thwarted. So care, love in my mind is redefined. And that is how the child grows up. So thinking that to be loved, this is what I need to go through. So at a point, some of them, like he said, 2 years probably don't know what is happening. But 5 years onwards, they know that this is, when they come to realize that whatever has gone on is wrong, they begin to look at the definition again. They begin to accept that if I need to be loved, then I need to go through some of these things. So growing up, people begin to know that, yes, if we talk about love, it means abuse. They mix that feeling.
Right.
So coming back, when it is mild, like she started saying, sometimes the person is lured into it gradually. So the perpetrator probably exposes that person to pornography. The perpetrator probably will expose himself to the child. Whilst probably masturbating or something, the perpetrator probably would tell the child to hold me here and there just to get aroused and all that. When the child begins to understand what he or she has gone through, then trust is worn out. This is someone that I thought I should trust. This is someone that was a caregiver. So trust is worn. On the other hand, when it is fierce, like what she just described,
yeah.
growing up, trauma set in. Sometimes you get the children withdrawn. Some become very aggressive because they don't trust anybody. So they go in and out of relationships, not love relationships, but even platonic relationships, because there's no trust for anybody. So that could also go on. Then most of the cases are not reported, like she said, because I've been told to keep it secret. So the child can keep this secret for a very long time until the effect begins to dawn. So some may come up with anxiety disorders. Some are reliving the experiences through nightmares, flashbacks. Some may be depressed. That is when they report, because it affects their day-to-day activities.
Doc, let
Trauma
me take a
and all
break
that.
and come back. When we come back, I want to look at, the effects on them. Of course, we'll look at the medical aspect of it, some of the effects. Now, when we started, you've given us one of the STI. A 6-month-old baby with an STI, if not treated, well, let me take a break and we'll be back to talk about this. But I'd like to say thank you to Stunning Florals and Decor for our plants, both natural and artificial. Thank you to Puma Drinks and Awake Purified Mineral Water by Casa Preco Company Limited. Juice Time 100% fruit juices. Gogot Yogurt, original, made in Ghana for Ghanaians. Yep Cleaning Services, thank you so much. The other ones to call to clean before and after. Thank you to Kodam's Gift and Stationery. Everything gift and stationery you can, they will sort you out. You get there, every gift and stationery you need for your children's school, for your office or whatever it is, you'll get it from there. Thank you to Cake Technique, House of Food. We are grateful to all of you. We take a break. When we come back, you're going to go deeper. We'll be back. Welcome back to The Standpoint. Well, let me say thank you to GTP for my cloth. This is Adepa. Thank you to Brie Redra for making the 2-piece dress for me. I'm grateful. And then my makeup by @the_glow bar. Now, Mrs. Clufier, one of the main reasons I wanted us to do this program is to let parents understand the effect it has on the child. And when we started, you gave us some of the STIs. So it's not just the child having, being abused. and the child is hurt or, virginity broken, but then there are health implications.
Yeah. So the effects are categorized into three. We have the physical, then psychological, and then she mentioned the abnormal sexual outcomes. That's when they go into prostitution and other deviant behaviors and sexual activity. So with physical, you can put the trauma, like I mentioned, in, and then the STIs. One thing I think we should think about is prevention. Because I recently did a research with 4 schools in the Ablikma South area. And I tell you, more than 42% of the children have been sexually abused.
No. Wait. More than what? 42%?
Yes. It's not been published yet, but that's what I have. What's the statistics?
In the Ablikuma area?
Yes.
Just one area?
4 schools, yes.
4 schools?
Yes.
Four
Junior high schools. Yes, 42%.
So these are children below
16. We wanted to limit it to child abuse. And child abuse is up to 16 because above 16, she can give consent to sexual intercourse. And I was thinking diseases like physical effects of a child abuse. For instance, the vaginal warts is by human papilloma virus, and that grows into cervical cancer. And with the developed world, children are inoculated, they are vaccinated against it by age 8. So if we are having most of our children being sexually abused around that age, it means we cannot get to prevent cervical cancer. So what we want to advocate now is prevention. For us to be able to be vigilant with our children, to educate them, to say no to sex. What we usually say is, wherever your clothes are covered for a child, let the child know that it's a no-go area. Nobody can touch that part of your body. So those are the don't touch areas. And then when we come to psychological, like she says, some of the children, when they come...
Well, let's stay with the health. We'll take it one with the health. I mean, with regards to the reproductive, system, so we've talked about the STIs, which can lead to cervical cancer.
Yes.
Are there cases where, if not checked, can lead to infertility?
Yes, we've had cases where repeated sexual abuse can lead to what we call pelvic inflammatory disease. The child will come with tenderness in the abdomen, very painful. The child is so much in excruciating pain that the child cannot even walk. When you take an X-ray or MRI or scan, there's a lot of fluid as a result of the infection that the child would have gotten from the repeated sexual acts. And if it's not treated properly, obviously it can ascend into the fallopian tubes, and that can cause the infertility, And also with this trauma that we also observed, if such a child didn't get an advanced care, for instance, it happened in a remote area where the child is not easily able to be taken to a tertiary institution for surgery to be done on time, if infection sets in, can also cause infertility.
What about HIV?
Sure, HIV and hepatitis B and C. So anytime they come in, we do those tests for them to make sure that they are treated on time.
So it's important parents take that into consideration.
Sure. Prevention.
Yeah, it's important that if after reporting to the police, you need to take the child to the hospital.
To the hospital.
For the child to be properly checked.
Yes, managed
there. Wow. Dr. Joanna, the other angle I want us to look at is the stigma. Yes. Stigma, not just the parents. So when the parents are talking about, we don't want the family name, but stigma in terms of the child, where everybody points fingers when it gets to know that, oh, this is the child this is the girl. And children can be mean. So it gets to school and everybody knows and pointing fingers at the child.
Great. So I believe that society or our society is not helping such children with stigma. It is the stigma that makes the parents refrain from making the issue public. It is the same stigma that makes the child unwilling to open up to parents or people they think can be of help. And so we need to be very cautious about that. Because, you see, before the perpetrator begins, like we've said previously,
Yeah.
most times the person coerces that child with gifts here and there and threatens the child. If you say it, you are going to die. If you say it, these are going to be the consequences. So already the child is afraid. And so if the child wants to tell somebody, confide, sometimes the child drops just a hint that this is what I'm going through. The reaction of this person would either encourage that child to come out fully or to hide the rest.
Right.
And most times, parents or adults who children choose to confide in rather adds up to the stigma that we are talking about. You are a bad girl. Why should you even do this? Why should you do that? And so we should create an atmosphere of trust and confidence for the children that we are bringing up. And so we should give children that room to be able to confide and then support as well. Most times, what I realize in practice is that most times people, because they are not able to confide and they are not able to come out, grow up with accepting that this was my fault. And so self-blame comes in. Self-esteem becomes a problem. Most times, because people get support, sometimes in our social circles when we are conversing with people, because they get the support, they don't reach that stage. Sometimes because I speak to someone about it, I'm giving the assurance, reassurance, and all that. Even if I don't report it, even if that child doesn't report it growing up, is not able to report, the fact that that support comes helps us prevent some of the traumas, some of the self-esteem issues, trust issues.
It's not true that if it happens to them as children, you grow out of it.
You see, the mind is very dynamic. And when a child is growing, the child is developing cognitively and physically. And so you are telling the child that, when the child is growing and then experiences that, a time comes that growing morals in society, he comes to realize that, no, I was told that this was good, but I realize now that, no, this is not good. So the processing begins from there. And then the child picks signals from around. If I don't trust, sometimes people tell you that I will never enter into a relationship because I don't trust men.
Right.
That is where it's coming from.
Right.
Sometimes some men decide that I'm going to abuse women because growing up as a child, they believe that maybe a caregiver who is a female or even a male colleague has abused that child.
Right.
And so that child grows up. Research tells us that victims are themselves sometimes grow up to become perpetrators. And so you see perpetrators, you say that this person is an adult, he should have known better. But that is through social modeling. That is what the person has come to accept, that it is good to do this to a child. And so these are some of the repercussions that we are dealing with if we are not creating the atmosphere for children to be able to come out with unusual happenings that occur to them.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
Mr.
to
Kofi.
add to that, usually most of these children, some of the signs that you realize they come up with is their grades fall, they become stubborn, because here is a child who is being forced to act like an adult. Then she's torn between being a child and an adult, so she'll be stubborn. We've had cases that they start wetting beds, they retrogress, you know, their grades are falling, they are becoming stubborn. And their conversation is not appropriate with their age. They talk about sex openly without, inhibitions. You know.
Right.
So these are some of the cues that parents should be able to pick, from children. And then usually the children themselves know that they need help. They need help. So immediately they come, you, the parent, will let you know that you shouldn't tell the child that he's a bad child. So as much as possible, we should make our children our friends as well.
Right.
They should be able to tell us everything. What I usually do is, oh, mommy, when you went to school, what happened? Even when they dress up, they go to church. So what did people say about your dress? From a tender age, they know that you ask. So anything that happens to them, when you come, they just tell you because they know you are interested in anything that happens.
That's a good one. I just learned something.
Yes.
Just learned something. Yeah. You wanted to watch because I wanted to look at the trauma. What about the trauma?
Yeah.
Because I've had cases where people who were victims when they were younger even grow up and say that there are certain, even though they are married, there are certain sexual position they can never do with their husbands.
Exactly.
Because the trauma is still there. It happened to them when they were 6 years, 10, but it's still in their 50s and 40s. They still can't have a certain procedure or there's certain sexual act that they can't. Yeah. I know someone who doesn't like kissing.
Yes.
Never will kiss their husband, nothing.
So we have what we call the post-trauma stress disorder. Sometimes the signs of post-trauma stress disorder doesn't occur immediately after the trauma. Sometimes up to 2 years, the symptoms begin to express. So I mentioned previously that some people relive the experience continually. And as you relive the experience, it becomes fresh in your mind. So as long as you are having nightmares, you are having flashbacks about this thing, and it's not resolved, that effect is still there. That is why if you take a child who is physically abused, when a child comes around you and probably has been stubborn, and you lift your hand, you see the child running to find somewhere to hide, thinking that you are going to hit him or her. It's the same thing here. So when people enter into relationships and then it has to do with sex, there's a problem because the issue is still fresh in their minds. The trauma is still the pain. And so if you are going to have that exactly like positions and all that with this person, that pain is still live in the mind. And that person feels that that pain would recur at that time. That is why it is very important that aside the police station, aside the court and everything, we need to find support for the victim. So Mental Health Authority is now currently planning to have a one-stop shop for people who are abused. So if you get there, Ghana Psychological Association is also planning something like this in the future. If you get there, you report. The lawyer is there, the psychologist, everybody you need to be able to come out is there to support you.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very good
Dofsu
initiative.
now has a center like that. They are trying to have a one-stop kind of, center in Accra here. I think they were supported by UNICEF or something in the Ghana.
And Kolebu as well.
Kolebu.
My unit, we want to come up with.
Your unit also wants to.
Yes, in conjunction with UNICEF and World Future Council.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You also
But
let's hope. Yeah.
To
You wanted
add,
to add.
Yes.
Yeah.
To add to that, most of the children who we find abused in our side of the world come from the very low socioeconomic income brackets. One, this child comes and there's no physical trauma. Maybe she comes and she's like, oh, somebody has raped, they use the word rape instead of defilement because we don't know, has raped my child, and then they go through the medical care. Then when it comes to the psychotherapy or psychological care, even for transportation to the hospital, is another thing. You know, we had 3 boys who themselves sodomized themselves. The average age is 8 years, yes. And then the
They
women were,
sodomized themselves, all 3?
yes, and they were caught on a Sunday practicing Saturday quietly in somebody's porch. They come and one of them is badly, you know, physically bruised, yes, at the back in his anus. So we took the pain, we did everything, the care and everything that we had to. Then it came to psychotherapy because these children had gotten used to it. No, sodomy is very addictive. Because for an 8-year-old boy to practice that on his fellow 8-year-old boy, and they were apparently introduced to it in school at break time by a 12-year-old boy. Oh yes, in this country. And then the 2 men who sell in the market are like, Madam, I cannot leave my wares at the market and come and follow this case till date. So you can imagine my son and your son, or my grandchild and your grandchild, will be exposed to these boys who haven't had psychotherapy. Yes, and because they are growing with it.
Yes.
They couldn't go through psychotherapy for them to get out of it.
Okay, I'll take a break. When we come back, that'll be the last segment. I want us to look at why and let parents understand why, and caregivers understand why, we need to report, we need to take the child to those and not think about you, the parent, but the child and the child's future because of the effect it can have on her. Now, I have a message on Facebook. It says, I was physically and mentally abused by my stepdad as a child. This created difficulties in expressing myself effectively. Although I have overcome this, I still have traces of these experiences lingering. Deep down is that feeling of insecurity. Not only that, I was also sexually abused at a very young age by a relative. Such acts steal our childhood and makes our joy incomplete. Thank you so much for the encouragement you keep giving us. I love you. I love you too, my dear. And we need to talk more about this later on. You're watching The Standpoint. We are talking about child abuse, sexual abuse, and the effect it has on the victim, and why we need to take it seriously, because we don't need to destroy the child completely and her future or his future as well. Well, let me say thank you to our sponsor, GTP, Still Timeless, and then Esteron Balloons and Accessories, everything balloons and accessories. We'll be back. Welcome back to The Standpoint. We say thank you to our supporters, Standing Floral and Decor, House of Food, Cake Technique, Juice Time, Go-Got Yogurt, Awake Purified Mineral Water and Puma Drinks by Casa Preco Company Limited, and Kodam's Gift and Stationery, Yep Cleaning Services. We're so grateful to all of you for your support. Now, Doc, you wanted to comment on that message, that last comment I read.
So I want to tell her she's not alone. I received several, I'm a lecturer as well, so I received several of such complaints. Sometimes a very intelligent person who is supposed to have so much confidence in him or herself is unable to do that. Why? Because growing up, he or she has been told over and over that you are good for nothing. You suffer this, that. So the person imbibes everything. We have what we call self-fulfilling prophecies. So the person imbibes me, I can't do anything good. Nothing good can come out of me. With time, it becomes the narrative of that individual, and they begin to exhibit that. So if you have that, don't feel shy to seek for help. Help is readily available. And we have what we call thought restructuring. We think through whatever you are doing and then whatever you are thinking to see whether they are in sync. And then we support you to bring everything in sync. And usually, everyone who goes through this process does very well through therapy. So don't be afraid at all. And so we all should take clues from that. If you need support, please, there is support readily available everywhere. in the hospitals, psychologists are everywhere now. So just don't hesitate to seek that help. It's very important.
Yeah. Mrs. Klufio, when I was chatting, I told you that I used to get angry. You know, parents who say, oh, we want to have and, you know, as for my husband, he knows that when I hear these things, in fact, he has gotten two people jailed because they defiled, you know, children in his, you know, area, his village.
She's been of help to us before.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I had one of those very bad traumas, and he donated. I've not had the time to say thank you to him. So I used this opportunity to thank him. It was on Joy FM.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I used to get so angry. Why would you say because of my image, because of this, that? But thank God for wisdom and growth and experience. I cannot understand why, because of this the stigma and name calling, and they think they are protecting themselves and the child image as well. But you can protect the child and still make sure that that child gets all the support that he or she needs by taking the child to the hospital to prevent some of these things that you talk about, the complications later on they have in life.
And for a complication like hepatitis B, you know, luckily for us now it's included in the inoculations, the vaccinations that the children are given. But of course, it can, after a time, I don't think it really
works for
exactly. Because after about 10 years, I'm not sure if the child is repeatedly violated or abused, and the viral load is high, it will not manifest. It can, you know, and hepatitis C as well. And that is very detrimental to the liver. The liver can go on to become cancerous, you know. So that is why it must be prevented, you know. So as much as possible, with stigmatization, now the children are even interviewed, not even now, but I think all the appearances that we've made to witness on the behalf of the children, the children are never interviewed in public, you know. So parents and guardians must be rest assured that their identity will not be disclosed.
And I think the media will have to also be a bit circumspect. When they are reporting on such issues, they show the faces of the victims and
sometimes they even embellish the stories. Yes.
The tree station.
Yes. You know, so that usually too, the children when they come, they'll tell you, I need the person to be punished. They tell you, as young as 6, beat him, send him to the police, and parents do not do that. And this child will grow up and will remember that you did him or her a great disservice because why didn't you do something when me, I wanted to get justice for what has been done? And God, in His wisdom, made us know that once you are touched inappropriately in your private parts, you know, nobody should touch it. And it's been touched. So the children know that they've been violated.
There's another comment from She Rise International, and the person says, why are children punished for being abused? They are supposed to apologize to their abusers in most cases and have to relate to the abusers even if they don't want to. This is mostly the case if the abuser is a family member.
So I mentioned...
And this is like double trauma for the abused.
So I mentioned that most times children go through self-blame. Some of these things contribute. So you see, we need to begin to trust what the child says. We usually trust the adult who has his way or her way out of such situations. So I know that I've perpetrated this crime, and I know that if I've told the child not to say it, but if the child says it or mentions my name, I know what to say to make the child feel so bad. But that child doesn't have the skill to do that. And so he probably or she probably gives up and say that, well, it's my fault. If I had not done this, probably this wouldn't have happened. And people grow up with serious self-blame, always thinking that they were at fault then. And so we should be very careful to listen to the child as well. As much as we want to listen to the perpetrator and accept what he says, we should also think through what the child says. For the moment, you can let things lie for a while and call the child aside in private and then begin to interview the child. You realize, or give the child to an expert to interview. You realize that the child comes out with the truth. So don't let us discourage the children. Let us encourage them to come out. Listen to them. Let's give them the support that they need. The support could just be, oh, is it true? Sorry about that. I will see what I can do about it. Then you lead the child to the appropriate place for support. So we need to do that rather than punish the child unduly for that. Because already the child has been made to know that if you has been threatened,
Right.
and then already going to talk about it, the child is blaming himself or herself that I've put somebody in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is,
especially if
yes,
the person is a family member.
Yes, that is there already. So we shouldn't add insult to injury.
Yeah.
And damage the child further.
Yeah. I mean, I want us to put the focus on the victim, the child, and, how it's important for the child to heal, in all aspects of it. But you brought this angle where, mothers will feel, and if it's the husband or this one, the stepdad or something, say, I don't want to be accused of being the one to put my husband in prison or the child beaten. So are you going to watch for your father, for your uncle to be put in prison, for your, for your auntie to be disgraced and there's so much burden put on this poor child who is already traumatized, who has been psychologically, emotionally damaged. How do we help such a child to heal? That's in conclusion. Mrs. Klufia. I don't even know what to say to you because the cases.
Yes, I'll say that children cannot protect themselves. It's the society that must protect children. And very soon, our time we were not exposed to social media, to technology. And we are educating our children. If you don't protect the child, this child will grow up to exact vengeance on the perpetrator himself or herself. That's how I see it. Because once a child grows up with hate, I realize mommy didn't do it, daddy didn't do that, or caregiver didn't protect me. They will, because they are exposed. They read, and they know that they can also do something. So please, I think we should protect the children. We should teach them, first of all, to be able to be assertive, to run away from such things. My daughter, when she was in class 1, she went like, Mom, they taught us how to protect ourselves. They said, if somebody tries to rape you, you should poo-poo on yourself. And I'm like, what if you don't feel you're not desperate to do it? But it's a way of letting the child know that there's something that you must do.
Yeah.
So I think prevention. We shouldn't let it happen.
Right. Yes, Mom.
So taking from there, prevention, I'll add education.
Yeah.
What we are doing is very, very important. And I believe that, I know currently they are doing aspects of this at school. And then sometimes at church, I know. So we should, as parents, she made a very critical point. Be there for your children. We know that now the economy is not allowing us to stay home to take care. But even if it is 10 minutes that you get in a day, make that fruitful for that child. Don't bring them all together. The me time with that, if they are two, each of them need that confidence with you. So let's spend time with them. Let's know what is happening in their lives. If they report anything, let's take action. Like we have said previously, most times when we didn't know about psychologists and all that, some people were not as much affected because they were counseled, the local counseling and all that. brought them out of it. So we can do a bit. Let's not forget about the fact that there are support everywhere. As we report to the police station, let's also seek support, psychological support for them, because it goes a long way to help them. And we've mentioned a lot of things. When she was talking, something came to mind. Sometimes you meet a client, and the client is so bitter, very unforgiving, and it's all coming from there. And sometimes if the child is abused once, and then there's no support, the child becomes vulnerable. You realize that going forward, she's exposed to multiple sexual abuse and other abuses, because she accepts it, or he accepts it as normal. And so we should be very careful. We should pay attention to our children. Thank you.
And sometimes, to add, they also in turn become abusers.
Yes.
The cycle. That if we don't get help for them, you can't break the cycle, and it becomes a continuous cycle. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I kept you waiting for today, but I hope we can, revisit this and look at other aspects of, the abuse, because I don't think I've done many programs on abuse, but I don't think done one that is centered on the victim, the child, and the kind of help that she needs to get or he needs to get. It's always been chasing the perpetrator, punishing the perpetrator. Meanwhile, this child is, quote unquote, wasting away emotionally, psychologically, facing the stigma, trauma, and then the health implications as well. Thank you, and God bless you.
So we want to let them know that my unit, we don't take a dime.
Okay.
Yes, when we write the police reports.
Oh, yes. Thank you. You don't, so when they bring them to the child protection unit, you don't take at Kolebu?
No, we
don't take any money.
We care for the children as children who need support, So anybody who wants to be of help to such children, especially the children who are not readily able to access psychotherapy, just a little transportation or something to make these children go through the full treatment that is needed.
Right. Thank you so much. Is there a number to contact or address?
Not yet.
Not yet, but just go to Kolebu.
Yes.
And then you
to the child health department.
Yeah,
Once
child
the
health
child
department
is below 16, you come to the child health department. And the child will be cared for.
Thank you so much. We'll take a break. In fact, I'll be back with a bit of me. Yes, there are many of us walking around broken. The source of brokenness vary. Some go way back to our childhood days. Some go deep down. Some of the brokenness are physical, you can see it. But some are deep-rooted. There are many people with so many challenges, all because of experiences they've been through. Child abuse is a grave disservice, grave crime against a child. It's a serious crime. And if the child does not receive the necessary help that she needs or he needs, this child is damaged for life. We can do all the dressing, but like a wound that is not treated from the source, we will dress it, we'll do whatever, it will eventually destroy or lead to death. We are killing and destroying the very ones that we are supposed to protect and preserve and love and cherish. We are killing them and destroying them. Yet for too long, justified anger against the perpetrators. But what about the victims? As we chase the perpetrators and call for the worst form of punishment against them, can we also keep an eye on the victims of abuse, these children who have been abused, so that we don't lose them in our anger to get justified justice for them? Can we make sure that they are protected, they are preserved, that they get a necessary treatment in terms of health, the psychological help, the protection against stigma, societal judgment, building their confidence and boldness, letting them understand that it is not their fault, irrespective of whatever anybody says. Don't let us lose our children. We have enough broken adults, embittered adults, because of their challenges or whatever they went through. We don't need our next generation also broken and bitter, all because we fail to act in their defense, because we fail to act to get help for them, because we fail to act by helping them heal. I remain a woman with super crazy faith in God, but I know God has given us wisdom. Let us apply it by making sure that our abused children get healing rather than being destroyed. Thanks for watching. See you same time next week. Bye for now.